Okay, we got a little outdoor field trip going here. So what I'm going to try to do is make a parting box board for this Perky. So I drug out some tools. So I want to ask you ahead of time to be patient with the camera work, because what I got to do is drag this camera back in there. So I'm going to slice up all the stuff that I need. I've got the Formica sheet that I'm going to use on the parting board. This is going to be the parting board box. And I'll be moving the camera around a lot, so just be patient, follow along, and hopefully you enjoy it. So I try to drag this stuff out when I have more than one thing to do. But I'll tell you what, it's always easier to have the right tools to make it go fast. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to slice this 3/4 inch up in the Formica, and this is going to be the dowel, I guess, would go in the front of the plug. So let's see if this thing's working. I got it already set for 3 inches. So this will be both sides of the box, and then of course the top will be out of Formica. So these are just barely long enough to do what I want. So let me get the plug out here. I've got to get a couple measurements here. Now, it's not real critical. You know, you want to leave enough space around this parting board for your flange. So I just need to come out here, and you're better off having it too big than too small, obviously. So I think this will be about right. TLAR. So I'll knock these sides out. I just use a little glue, some brad nails. at this a little bit. One of the tricks that works for me, I don't know, I'm sure other people have done it. Let's say you've got a piece of wood and you just need about 10 thousandths off of it. And it's pretty repeatable. What you do, depending on the blade, push this up next to your saw blade until it flexes, and it'll deflect a little bit. Pull the blade up and the blade will snap back to straight, and then you make that cut and basically it'll just shave just a super small amount. I use that, I can trim carpentry a lot. Go in there and fine tune your cuts. So, I'm not sure. This was scrap. This is going to be the stick that goes in the plug. I need to shave this down a little bit. So let me do that really quick. And also I'll set the blade up for cutting the formica from the top. So that gives me something a little bit smaller to go in here. So that'll work. Now, what I need to do is cut the top of this. So since these are going on the outside, I'll use this to set the width of the top of the box. This without measuring over. A little crooked. Started out good. So this fence is raised up a little bit. Basically this is so thin it'll go under it. I knew that would happen, but it's going to be alright for what we're doing. Now, let me drag out a nail gun. We'll get this thing nailed together. So the way this deal works out, the compressor's in the trailer at this time. Let me hook the compressor up. So So seems like a lot of rigmarole, and it is. Saves time in the long run. It takes probably 15-20 minutes to set this stuff up. Another 20 minutes to put it away, or 15. So I'll put some glue on that joint. I'm also going to put the comments on here. Put the chat box up. Now I can't, from over here I can't see the chat box, but I'll check on it here in a minute. See if we got an error. Looks good. Alright, let's get this box put together. I guess you could peel the top of these boxes off and repurpose some of it. I pretty much just make one box for one plug. So basically the 18 gauge brad nails just sort of act like a clamp. The glue is what really holds it. This is the way we make drawer boxes. We miter them for like built-ins. Just use the glue and brad nails. And we veneer the top end grain of the plywood. That'd be it. This thing here just goes on top. If you saw a previous video, I made a template that actually gave me this top view, and I saved that. Save your templates. When you lay this plug out, make sure you save your templates that you traced on your material, because it comes in handy when you have to actually make the parting board, because you're going to make the you're going to use that template to get your cutout. It might not be exact, but it's going to be really, really close. So you got a choice basically. You can actually cut that out beforehand, or you can cut it out after the fact, you know, after you get it on the box. I'll go ahead and I'll make the box first, I think. I've done it both ways, but either way works out okay. Probably be better off to CA this. This is the cheaper way here. Or I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do both ways. So the CA will sort of act like a clamp. If you ever watch some of those videos of our overseas hearth builders, this is the method they use, and it was really pretty clever. They use glue plus CA, regular glue, and basically this is what they're doing. I'll show you. Prime it up with a little kicker. So what they're doing, they're going through here and they're putting CA wherever there's not glue. Well, CA is glue. They take the CA and they run it next to it, just like this. I thought it was pretty unique. So just think of the CA as a clamp. We'll get this thing lined up. So the CA will kick off. So, you know, it's glued down in theory. And then the actual wood glue will eventually cure. So that's how long it takes to make the box. Don't get too carried away about it having to be exact. One of the things I got to be careful of, this thing is just long enough to hold this plug. So it looks like if I come in an inch, so I can come in an inch from each end, that will center it. This Formica's got a little texture to it. It's like a satin texture, but I think it'll be all right for the flange. Let me see if I've got any comments over here. Nope, no comments. Yeah. All right. let me take this show on the road here, put it in the garage. We'll trace out the top of this thing, and we'll get that top of the box cut. I'll show you how I do that. The other thing I'll do is I'll glue that dowel on the front of that fuselage plug, and then we're going to take it from there. We're going to spray some automotive primer on top of that thing. So let me gather up my stuff here and move it in. Sorry for the shakiness, but that's just the way it goes on these high production deals. So I put this thing on an extension cord so I've got a little bit more latitude. Move this stuff around. So I think this camera is actually a wireless camera, and Bluetooth anyway. One of these days I'll explore that option and see how that works. So without the lawnmower in here, I've got a little bit more room. The other thing I've done is I've actually changed the brightness on this camera. It helps a little bit maybe. So we'll see. I think if I change the lights a little bit, so that isn't quite as harsh. So let me get my parting box. All right. So that's where I got to keep the plug. So I'm going to trace it with just a normal pen, I believe. I'll put a little bit of acetone on the rag here. sometimes you pre-clean this. It helps the ink pen from not skipping. Let's see, might as well split it in half. Let's see, you got basically a 6-inch box, 3 inches. 3 inches. This will split it. Now this is where the template comes back. So since it's a half template, let's see. I don't know if this is, that's terrible lighting in it. Since this is a half of a template, you flip it. You can adjust how wide it is. So what we're going to do, we're just going to trace the template since we're not really sure. The gap you end up with is filled with clay anyway. Some people use paraffin. Some people use clay. Some people do the Bondo deal. So whatever you do, whatever works is fine. The only time you have to be careful when you start using clay, especially with silicones, if you have a clay that's got sulfur in it, your silicone won't cure. So it's there's some compatibility issues with that. So this is what I got. I just sort of sight down through the top. It looks like the plug. It might be a little oversized. I might have to actually open that up a little bit more. The next step is drill a hole and run a jigsaw around it, and I run a jigsaw shy of that line. And I'm not going to do that right now just for the fact that it's still curing. I want that wood glue to actually set up. The wood glue should start to bite pretty quick. You know, the CA, obviously it went off really fast, but put a little weight on that. So weight that down on the corner. Looked like it was needed a little help. So yeah, the next step, I'm going to take this and I'm going to drill this out. And I'm going to CA that little dowel rod I've got. And I might turn the camera off and then I'll turn it back on when it comes time to put this thing in the parting board. Let me go out there and get my little dowel rod here real quick. The beauty of this foam is it will take, I'm pretty sure I have to test it. It'll take CA, lacquer, acetone, all that stuff. Let's see, how do I want to configure this? Probably like this. So this isn't anything. too fancy here. I'm just going to gouge this out. Let's see. A little undersized maybe. As you can see, it drills like butter. Basically, this stick is sort of acting like a broach. It's just going down there and taking this round hole and turning it into a square hole. Now, I'm going to take a little CA and double check this foam. See how we're doing. Doesn't matter how sure you are whether or not it's going to work. Just get this much invested in time and material. Do your test samples, you know. I'm not sure of the density of this foam, but messing with this thin stuff here, I think it has some promise of some core material. So it looks like we're good to go on this CA. One thing I might do, I might go through here and round a few corners. It'll fit down in there a little bit better right at the end. So I'm putting a liberal amount in there, and since I sprayed this with kicker, it's got to go quick. Okay, otherwise it'll kick before you get it bottomed out, so just give it a good shove. Now this gives you a way to hold on to this thing while you're painting it. So I just go through here, I'll just do one final look here, and I think we're really about ready for the primer on it. So I bought these Bosch drivers, and it comes with different fit, you know, different chucks and stuff. One of the things you got to be careful of, if you do a lot of tightening of the chuck like that, don't grab it back here, otherwise you'll lose your chuck. End up dropping on something. Okay, so now we're at this stage. Let me go over this thing with a fine-tooth comb. One of the things I've got to do when I talk to Robert is, if you go with the thrust line, it's right in the, obviously it's in the center of this nose ring. It has to be, right? So that's where your high point is. So if you make a parting, if you part this mold anywhere but this center line, which is on the thrust line, you'd end up with a negative draft angle, and that's the problem with this. Now the way you'd get around that is you'd have to have a 3-part mold. You'd have to have one part where you have the draft angle, where it goes past it in a negative draft. You'd have to split the mold this way too. So you'd have a mold top that go like this, that come in half, and then you have another piece that goes down. So what I was trying to do is get away from a mold that has a 3-part mold. So I think we can do it with this. I mean, it's not set in stone. I'm sure that you can make it work. This was my test sample right here. This is let me get this thing up here. Basically, I used this stuff here. This was Harbor Freight. I don't know if they sell it, but you can go to any auto and get the rattle can primer. Do a test piece on whatever you're using with this foam. The problem is with this foam here, the number, the 3020, I can't cross-reference it. One of the blocks, it distinctively says Wren Shape 3020. So this is old stuff. It's probably 30-some years old, okay? So the problem is, I mean, obviously you can't get this stuff anymore, but there's somewhere, somebody carries it, but it's just a different number. This tooling board, this foam tooling board, is still out there in all different densities. You just got to round up who's got what you need. But if you get the right stuff, basically, you're going to be able to CA it. You're going to be able to spray, you know, lacquer on it and do all the things that will make your life easier. Now, your life would really be easy if you didn't have to do the primer, but you trade off the workability of the board. Wren Shape 450 is that happy medium. It still carves like basswood, and believe it or not, you can go through the grit 600, 800, 1,000. Once you get to 1,000, you can wax it, PVA it, you know, buff it. So that's good stuff, but the problem is, I mean, the cost of the tooling board. So if you get to this point and you're discouraged about this board, which I was for a while, with the cost, don't be afraid to just use blue foam and put epoxy over it. Now, one of the problems happened here. This was blue board foam insulation. Super easy to sand and work, and all it takes is one little drop of acetone or thinner, and one little drop will eat a size out of this like a quarter. So my recommendation whenever you use this foam is the whole thing has got to be encased in epoxy and fiberglass. If it's at least 3/4 ounce or ½ ounce with some epoxy, and that way it's impervious to, you know, accidents like that. So let me get a sanding block. I think I need to go through the back end of this thing, and I gotta adjust for this draft angle. Basically, what I'm looking at here is just a slight little hook. So I need to bring this in a little bit right here, because the way I'm looking at it, it looks like it's going to actually have a little bit of a hook on it, maybe. Oh, maybe not. So yeah, I think I'm all right. Okay, so the next step, take the primer. I've already tested this stuff. So back in the DC 540 days, it'd really be quick. Okay, so I'm going to do one more thing, because as soon as I spray this primer, I'm going to lose my reference line. So I'm going to do something with some pins. I'm going to take some straight pins, and I'll probably leave them in there to help me locate this thing on the parting board. So we're parting on this line down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick a straight pin in that line. So even though I'll spray the primer over that line, I'll still know where it's at. The other thing is, when I cut this off to go in the parting board, this will come off after all the sanding and primer's done. And I'll probably leave these straight pins in there, and that'll allow me to set this in the board. And when it's setting in the board, it'll be lined up with the parting line. I always had trouble on some of these things when I tried to put them in the parting board. What would happen is it would start to wobble around and get a little off where I wanted it to be. All right. So spraying this styrofoam, or whatever you call this stuff, the board, it's an open cell. And you'll see, if you go too light, you're going to see like pinholes pop up because the air is coming out of it. So I try to spray it somewhat wet. That way it soaks in the pores pretty quick. This is only the first coat, so what I got on here now will be sanded, and then I'll go back and do a second coat. And don't worry about if you get a little run, try to keep it smooth. If you get a run, it's no big deal. It's all going to be sanded. Even clear coat at this stage on these molds, you always just sand out a run and buff it. Really forgiving anyway. So that's about it for that. I mean, this primer speeds it up. Now normally, I was going through the other plug. I'd use catalyzed auto body primer. I sort of chinched out and used this. Once you get the clear coat on it, it'll be fine. So get the clear coat on it and get it buffed. Let's see. Hi Robert. I think it's Ortlap. So yeah, that yeah, that light, I gotta change that. Yeah. Yeah, TMU version. Yeah, that light, I'm trying to think. I think I need to put a diffuser on that light. If I get back here, it's alright. Somewhat. But I'm going to put a diffuser up there. I thought maybe with the door open it would let in a little bit more light and compensate for it. The overhead light, the way I have it, if it's a dark part, like a piece of carbon, it shows up alright. But if you're doing plans or this, anything like foam that's light, you end up washed out. So yeah, that's got to change. Probably didn't miss too much. Not too critical, but yeah, it's bothersome. But it's a new camera, it's new lighting, so I got to go through here and figure all that out. So and I just take that lollipop over there and I just stick it in the vise. Just put it in there like that, right there. So with a little luck, I'll be able to cut this parting board on the line and not have to shave too much off of it. I guess if you cut it too big, it becomes a problem because you're putting too much wax in it. If you cut it too small, it's okay, I guess, because basically you're going to just enlarge it. So let's see. Let me drill a hole in this thing, big enough to get a jigsaw blade in it. See, that's where it's really washed out. what decides to go through that Formica, it goes. Now I'll grab a bandsaw blade. Not a bandsaw, a jigsaw. There we go. Give me a second. I'll go in the trailer and we'll get a jigsaw. We'll slice this thing out, see how close we are to the plug. Yeah, I think in order to shoot this live, and make it flow better, you'd have to have somebody running the camera. And obviously the best case scenario would be to have somebody edit it, or actually edit it. This is just a little insurance here. There's enough clearance, but let me make sure this blade's in here right. Thought it was in there. If you get too much dust in there, it doesn't latch. And if you haven't figured it out by now, that's a very crude process. For me, cutting this hole goes faster when it's on the box, when I can use a jigsaw. Now, one of the things I think happened, tilted in a little bit. This Formica is sort of warpy. So what I can do to actually compensate for that, which I think I probably will, probably off camera, but I'll cut some 45s out of some plywood scrap, and there'll be little blocks, and what I want to do is put those 45s in here, and I'll put those 45s, you know, along here, maybe four or five of them. And that'll do two things. The first thing it'll do is it'll bring this up very slightly to so it's 90 degrees to the plug. The other thing it'll do, which is sort of a hidden feature, that once the 45s are in here, that'll give me something. Let's just say this is a piece of wood here. That'll give me something. I'll go up next to the 45s like this and with a piece of wood, and I'll glue it up next to that, and it'll help support this plug, because when the plug is actually in the parting board and you're claying it up, you want a cradle in here somewhere with a bunch of wood strips or whatever to hold it in place. The clay will hold it somewhat, but initially you need something to actually physically hold it. So that's where I'm at on that. The only other thing I'll talk about really quick, and I'm sort of at a point where I need to actually cut this thing out, is this bell crank blank. This bell crank blank is it's glued together, it's ready to go. Now what I have to do, I have to make a jig that it's going to be the center post 2 inches and 2 inches. So I'll probably build a drill jig with some drill bushings, at least for this prototype, and or if I want to make one myself without the water jet cutting. And initially this push rod hole on the output arm will probably be left blank. Maybe I might scribe a line there so you know where 90 degree is, and let whoever wants to drill their own hole, their own size or whatever. Normally they just run a bolt with a ball ink on it or something. So this is the piece that the bell crank will be cut out of. It's got the fork in it, and once I get a bushing in here, it'll have extra buttons top and bottom to build up the thickness in the center. This will be built up, and then the bushing will be molded into these buttons, and then of course, you know, the lead outs will go around brass buttons on a post. And once I get to that stage, I'll cut all this out so it obviously looks like a bell crank, and then I'll start hanging some weight on it and see how much weight it's going to take. And just by looking at this and playing with some samples, I'm almost positive, you know, it'll take 250 pounds pull test. So it's really stout. It's the same thickness, maybe 10 thousandths thicker than the other bell crank I was making. I'll keep whittling this test piece down until it breaks, and I'll record where it breaks at. If it breaks at 300 pounds, and it's always good to 300, I'll probably go with it, and whatever the weight is at that point, you know, it is what it is. So the other thing that will improve, this is hand laid vacuum bag carbon fiber. This is 6 layers, and it's 6 on the top and 6 on the bottom, so there's 12 layers of carbon fabric in this bell crank. The bell crank that will be made with pre-preg autoclave, I can 100% guarantee it'll be better properties than what's in this. So once this passes the test, it'll give me a starting point to tell the composite shop this is what I want, and then I'll take their bell crank after it's laser cut and made and everything. I'll destruction test that, and I'm sure it'll exceed what I can do with a hand layup. So there's a lot of iterations here. You just go back and forth until, you know, you finally come up with what you need. It's reverse engineering, I guess. Crude way of doing it, but it works. So that's where I'm at on that. Today, probably off camera, I'll do it outside because of the dust and everything. I'll take the vacuum out there and I'll carve this bell crank out of this plate. So I'll give you an update when I turn the camera back on. In the meantime, I'm gonna put some little supports under here for my plug. I'll probably sand the plug off the camera, and when I turn the camera back on, I'll be setting the plug into the parting board and claying it up. And then really, if you want to see where I'm at that stage, I mean, I've got a previous video on the pod or something I did. It's the same thing. So let me look at the comments here. Robert's always saying something. That's good. I'm glad to hear from him. Let's see here. I made paint safe and sounds like balsa. He said Dominion Sure Seal makes an amazing 3-to-1 primer, automotive, paint safe, and sands like balsa, high bill plastic. Okay, well that's cool. Dominion Sure Seal 3-to-1 primer, automotive, paint safe, and sands. Dominion 3-to-1. Okay. Let me write that down. Dominion 3-to-1. I'll look that up, Robert. So that's good to know. I mean, if you got something that it'll be attacked by lacquer. Hey Robert, are you you talk about being up north? Are you friends with Chris Cox? Are you that far north? Do you know him? He's a Canadian flyer up there. It sounds like you know quite a bit about this stuff. So I was wondering, I know Chris flies composite airplanes. I didn't know if you worked with him on it or not. So it's good to have people chime in. There's an old saying that if I walk into a room and I'm the smartest one there, I need to leave, because you don't want to be the smartest one in the room. And what I mean by that with the composite stuff, people chiming in and giving their advice, and some of the things that people come up with, it's not something you're going to immediately use, but you put it in the back of your mind. It's like this primer Robert mentioned. So let's just say 6 months down the road, I'm thinking, dang, what was the name of that primer? Because I could really use it now. So part of the problem is with this live streaming is basically I put a title out there and I tell you what I'm going to cover, but there's a lot of chit chat going on. There's a lot of talking, but it's still full of a lot of good information, I feel. But how do people access that? So one of the things I'm going to do going forward with this program, I'll be able to live stream and then copy it to the hard drive at the same time. So the hope is I'll go through these live streams and I'll edit it. I'll make a compilation of, let's just say, fuse plugs and parting boards or something. The video will be 15 minutes long, but it'll be jam-packed with just really fast clips. So that's something for the future, but the live stream definitely, it puts me in a position where I could keep going. I got a better workflow out here in the shop. But I think I'm at a stopping point now with what I got. I'll come back and finish this up. It's sort of redundant. I did the pod. There's another thing, and I'll show you real quick. Basically, I'm working towards, believe it or not, I'm working towards a goal. And that goal is, I'm not sure of the weight or how it's going to be done, or if it's going to be done with a core material, balsa, foam, fiberglass, I don't know. But I'm working toward the goal of a fuselage or a control line stunt plane. I'll start with a fuse, and then I'll come up with plugging the wings in, and there'll be a lot of different iterations. but I've showed this on camera before. I'll get it out. It's right here. It's a bigger plug. It's for an RC plane, but it's on the same concept. And I keep looking at Billy's P47, how big that is. And I think the sticking point to Billy's P47 for a lot of people is that fuselage. And I know it was me. I mean, of course he's got that geodetic wing and stuff. I already have all that figured out, but you got carving and the amount of work that it takes for a fuselage that size. So this is an RC plane, and this is the next project. Now, the people that are watching this, I haven't given up on the whole shot. The whole shot is still sitting over there. I got to get a couple projects out of the way, and then the whole shot will go back on the bench. But basically, this is the RC plane. So this was cut out of blue insulation foam, and it was 2 sheets, 2 inches glued together. So the seam was my center line. Okay, so I always knew where that was. Now, it worked out good, but one of the drawbacks, I mean, you get a little bit of cure going on, and if you look at it just right, you can see a little ripple. It's not as stable as this other board I'm using, and it would be more stable if I had more glass. But I'm already to the clear coat stage, so I'm past the glass. Now, let's just say you lay this thing up in a mold and you see it, you know, a little ripple there or whatever. You just take a block sander, or you take some sandpaper, and you can wet sand that gel coat in the mold, and you can get out little imperfections or whatever, and you can smooth it out after the fact. But yeah, the neat thing about this whole deal is eventually a control line stunner with all these swoopy nice lines. One of the mistakes I made on this plug, the sides are too flat. Now I should have brought these sides out and got more shape to it for more rigidity. And one of the ways you can actually get more strength without any more weight per se is when you mold something. If you mold in fairings or certain lines or doodads, they call them, like at the leading edge, if you can put in a lot of swoops and curves, you're going to have a more rigid fuselage. And if you have a plank side, or if the sides are too narrow, there's a lot of different things, you know, but you can incorporate a lot of rigidity into a cool shape. So that's where I'm at. I've got to make a mold off of this. It's it'll be the biggest one I've made, but that's coming up. And also something in my mind with the whole shot. It's called the Whole Shot Master. I wanted to come up with the Whole Shot Pro. The Whole Shot Pro would be a really light glass fuselage. It's already made with indexing for the center line, the thrust line. It would go on the bench. You'd plug in your spar, put your control horns in there, and basically build an I-beam on a fuselage that's already built. And then of course your tail goes on. It'd be a really quick project. So let me see where we're at here on the comments. I ramble on a lot, but I'm going to go over food for thought. Let's see. Okay, you didn't know Chris. If you're up around that area, I mean, Chris Cox is a really great guy. The primer I've used epoxy over it, never had a problem. Okay. Added video. Okay. Well, thanks for the compliment. One of the advantages of this format, it's interactive. Now, I know we probably have just one, but the neat thing about it, I mean, if you're on the other end and you start to have questions, even if you don't have questions, you say, hey dummy, try this, and it's like, I'm all about it. So that's the neat thing about this format. So yeah, this fuselage was is built for a carbon gear. This the neat thing about some of this RC stuff, at least this size, you know, you can just slap this old control line stuff on it. So I got this swoopy carbon gear like that. So this is a gear that's going on the whole shop. So, and this was probably gonna, I'm almost positive it's gonna be electric. So I'll probably open up some of these scoops up here on each side of the spinner, and I might even put a spinner that's a little bit smaller diameter to get the air ramming over the top of everything, plus the scoop. And the wing will probably just be a Hershey bar wing to start out with, and I molded in a flat spot for the gear. So that's how that's going to work out. But yeah, Bob Hunt, he said, talking about the whole airplane, he said stick with the components. So I'm working myself into the whole plane as one thing, but it's an ongoing process. So a lot of times when you see something sort of off the wall, it's a test bed for something else. So anyway, this here, this was you might have seen this in past videos. I showed the completion of this, I believe. But the beauty of something like this is it's I call it the pod. So there was going to be a fiberglass or a carbon fiber tube come out the back. The landing gear is the same setup, basically. It's the same carbon gear. So the idea behind this pod was something fun for the RC field over there. So you could take this pod and maybe make another pylon that would go up here. So then you'd put a dihedral anhedral wing, and it would be like a sailplane wing up there. And then you could take the tail, boom, and stretch it way out, and you could have a floater. Or you could take like a stunt wing or something and run a tube through here and put a stubby wing, like a shoulder wing, and then have something faster. So just by changing where the wing goes in relationship to the thrust line and then how long the tail is, you can change the you could have unlimited amount of airplanes. So basically the pod, the only purpose of this is hold the gear, the servos, the motor, the battery, everything else. So then all the things that attach to this, of course the wing and the fuse, they're all different configurations. So it was a fun project, and it also let me try out a few new concepts. So the second mold on this, I'm going to shoot for something high temp that'll go in an autoclave. So that's the next step to this. I've got so many projects out here. It's like, I don't know if I can get through them all. But anyway, that's where I'm at. Let me check the comments one more time. Let's see here. Yeah, the plug, a slope glider fuselage. There's a guy, I forget his name. He's got a beautiful channel. He's a man. I wish I could remember his name, but he does nothing but slope gliders. Yeah, the nacelles for a twin. The twin deal, that's another thing I talked to Bob about. And another concept where it relates to twins, where this bench, underneath this bench, has got a warming box. It's almost 4 foot by 6 foot. It's big in there. And that warming box will go to 125, maybe up to 150 if I push it. So the idea is to build some molds that will take heat, high temp molds, and I'd cure them up to 125 or 150. Then I'd take them into a composite shop and they'd ramp up the molds and cure them all the way up to maybe 300 or 350. So I could do the initial layup of the molds and develop the plane here, finish it off there, and they'd be pre-preg enabled. So the concept was with the twin, Robert, is you'd have a fuselage that's a mold or the plug. You'd build a wing into the fuselage and then you'd build the nacelles into it. And it would be a two-part mold. It would be top and bottom. So not only would you get the fuselage, but you'd get the wing out past the nacelles, which would probably be about like this, really. And then, of course, when it came time to plug your wings on, you'd plug them in, probably on a tube or whatever method, on the outside of the nacelles, which would be a built-up foam-type wing. Weight is always a consideration. That's to be seen. I mean, how much carbon or glass you can put in there, but if you can imagine getting a twin with the nacelles already on it, the fuselage all molded up, all swoopy, all the way back to the tail, what would have to be added after that fact would be the wings would plug in somehow outside of the nacelles. Back in the back, the stab and the vertical stab would go on. So by leaving the vertical stab off the fuselage, it gives you a lighter option probably than what you could do with the composite, and it would also give you more chances to change things. So it'd be more customizable. So yeah, that was in the back of my mind. So there's somebody out in Pennsylvania I'll probably stop and see. And I want to go over some stuff. I still owe him a bell crank slash horn, something I was working on. So yeah, there's a lot of neat stuff I want to try. It's one of these things where if you get too outside of the box, basically it's only for you because of the builder of the model rule, but still there's a lot of neat stuff I want to try. And a twin is one of them. But if you had the mold where everything was in line and the nacelles were built into the wing was straight, you know, everything was keyed in. The other thing with this 4-foot by 8-foot bench, it's got a glass top on it. They're in a box up there. I'd have to dig them out, but basically they're adjustable height gauges. So the other nice thing about this bench, when I shim this 4-foot by 8-foot piece of plate glass flat, I put height gauges all around whatever I'm building, and it's all keyed in. So all the way from the box to mold it, to cure it, to the top plate of glass to actually reference everything. Once I get the hole shot to the point where the wing is in the fuse and all the ribs are built into the I-beam, I'll probably take it off the bench, flip it over, put it on these height gauges, and the height gauges will index everything off the glass. So when I set it up, not only does the glass reference the height of things, but there's crosshairs on the glass that I reference the fuselage, the trailing edge of the wing, and the trailing edge of the stab. So everything is aligned. The height gauges are made to where there's a pin that goes up and down, but the height gauge sits at 90 degrees here. So if I have a line on the bench and I want to transfer that straight up, you know, it's accurate. So that'll be another video too, the alignment process. So don't have a tooling plate, but the glass is close enough, I think. He's from Australia, yeah. Yeah. Stimson Design Partners, the pod would make a nice nacelle for a twin. You know, it's sort of funny. You talk about the pod. There's a pod I made. It was a wheel pant that I flipped over. Let me see if I can find one. So here's a crazy little thing, but here's a pod concept. Okay, this little pod. See if I can get it on the camera. So yeah, it's just a pod, and then the wing goes on top, right? And it's got a carbon fuse. This started out as a wheel pant. It was a Citabria, Balsa USA Citabria wheel pant. So as you can see, if you look at the top of this outline, it sort of looks like a wheel pant if you take this scoop out of here. So what I did is I cut the bottom of the, which was the top of the wheel pant, because this wheel pant's flipped. I cut the top out, and now the bottom of the wheel pant, I added this scoop. Now I took epoxy putty and built this up to make the plug. So this started out as a wheel pant, and I just added all this stuff to it and blocked it off. But that's the beauty of composites. You can actually take all different iterations of different things, and you can just start adding putty and all the different things and make whatever you want. Now this landing gear, it sort of reminds me of the Perky in a way. This is the way I do it, I guess, but this right here, just music wire. Inside the fuselage, I just bent this music wire back, laid it flat, brought it down to the bottom, and then I just put a whole bunch of glass cloth right over the top of it, so it's in there permanent. But yeah, it's you can start making some wild stuff. It's whatever you can dream up, as long as you got the draft angle, I guess. So I thought about this pod as becoming a nacelle. I've got smaller pods, a little bit smaller than this, that are really streamlined, that would make good nacelle pods. So I'm always up for multi-use. See if I can find one already out of the bag. Here's another. It's a little bit better view. So yeah, started off as a wheel pant, you know, built this. It's just the fiberglass. Now these were sprayed with rattle can. It's at whatever you get at the hardware store, you know. And I think I use auto body primer rattle can on it. And yeah, you could almost take that and put that on a wing. You know, that'd be a nacelle pod. Here's a different version. It's not as swoopy. Basically, it's this was carved out of tooling board. It wasn't a wheel pant. And the carbon rod here, the wing sits here, and just square it off, you know. A little heavy for control line use, but for banging around with RC, it's a great concept. A lot of fun stuff. I like the creative stuff. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming in. It was great chatting. I love the interaction. I learn a lot from people. Give me a lot of ideas. So I'll jump off here. I'll finish up all the little things I got to do to make this thing work, and I'll turn it back on, and I'll have more content probably later this week. Thanks.